The first thing I noticed was how quiet the neighborhood became. Every morning, I'd pass by Mr. Holden's house on my way to work. For years, his yard was nothing but dry soil and tangled weeds, like the earth itself had given up on him. But last Monday something changed. Overnight, his entire garden transformed into a thick, vibrant jungle. Towering vines sprawled up the house walls. Huge flowers, deep red, purple, and almost black, bloomed as if someone had painted them onto the air. And the scent, sweet but heavy enough to make your lungs ache. I stood there staring, confused. "Morning," I called out. No answer. I spotted movement behind the leaves, like something shifting through them, something heavier than wind. Before I could look closer, Mr. Holden stepped out of the house. He smiled too widely, as if forcing his face to remember how. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said. "Did you plant all this yesterday?" He chuckled softly, but his eyes didn't match the sound. "It just grows fast. Very fast." I left for work with a strange feeling pressing against my spine, like the garden was watching me walk away. By that evening, it had grown again. The vines reached past the fence, creeping toward the sidewalk. The flowers had doubled in size. Some pulsed as if breathing. And the next morning I found something worse. Mrs. Langley, the old woman who walked her dog every day at sunrise, didn't show up. Instead, her leash lay tangled in the vines outside Holden's yard. But like the garden had swallowed it whole. That's when I realized the garden wasn't growing. It was hungry. That night I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those thick black-red flowers pulsing like infected hearts. By morning, I convinced myself it was just exhaustion, until I stepped outside and heard it. A rustling, not like leaves in the wind, but like something shifting beneath them. Low, heavy, intentional. I walked past Mr. Holden's house carefully. The vines had grown another 3 feet overnight, twisting around the mailbox, digging into the cracks in the pavement like fingers searching for a grip. The air around the garden felt warmer than the rest of the street, almost feverish. And the smell, sweeter than yesterday. Too sweet, like rotting fruit disguised as perfume. I knocked on Holden's door. No response. But I heard whispering from the garden. Soft, rhythmic, almost coaxing. My skin crawled as I backed away. Later that day, a neighborhood alert was posted online. Missing Mrs. Langley. Last seen walking her dog. I wanted to tell them about the leash tangled in the vines. But how do you accuse your neighbor's garden? By evening, another person went missing. Caleb, the teenager who biked past our street every afternoon. His bicycle lay twisted near Holden's fence, its front wheel half swallowed by vines. A smear of something dark coated the petals of the nearest flower. Felt sick. That night I stayed awake, watching from my window. At exactly 2:14 a.m., the garden moved. The vines rose and stretched like limbs waking from sleep. Some curled toward the street. Others reached toward Holden's windows. Then his porch light flicked on. Silhouette stepped outside. Not Holden. It was taller, thinner. Its limbs looked wrong. It turned slowly toward my house. And the garden behind it shivered, like it had just taken a breath. When I woke up the next morning, the first thing I noticed was the sound. Not birds. Not wind, not insects. It was breathing. Slow, deep, and wet, like something was inhaling through 1,000 tiny mouths at once. I froze in bed. The sound wasn't coming from inside my room. It was coming from outside my window. I slowly pulled back the curtain. And I swear to God, the garden across the fence moved. Not from wind. Not from animals. The plants were leaning, tilting upward. Their red flowers all pointing at my bedroom window like dozens of watching eyes. And in the center of them all was the same tall, shadow-shaped figure I had seen last night. But this time, it wasn't hiding. It was standing perfectly still, shoulders hunched, its head tilted too far to one side, staring directly at me through the vines. Its eyes glowed faint, sickly orange, like dying embers. I stumbled backward, heart pounding so hard my teeth vibrated. When I looked again, it was gone. But the breathing wasn't. I went outside, determined to prove to myself I was imagining things. The air smelled sweet, too sweet, like overripe fruit on the verge of rotting. The plants in my neighbor's garden looked even bigger. Some had grown a full foot overnight. The flowers were huge, red and wet-looking, and I swear when I got close they twitched. My neighbor, old Mrs. Haddon, stepped out of her back door when she saw me staring. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair messy, hands shaking. "You've seen him, haven't you?" she whispered. My skin went cold. Him. She nodded slowly. "The gardener." I laughed nervously. "I think you're misunderstanding." "No," her voice cracked. "You've already noticed it. The growth, the smell, the missing things." I stopped breathing. "Missing things? What are you talking about?" "Yes." She backed away like she'd said too much. Then she whispered, "Check your yard." My heart dropped. I ran home. At first I didn't see anything wrong. But then, my garden gnome collection, 8 of them, was gone. Every single one. The soil around where they used to sit was freshly disturbed. Something had taken them. Or worse, someone. And from the corner of my yard, buried beneath the ferns, I heard it again. That slow, hungry breathing. I didn't sleep that night. Not after hearing that breathing. Not after realizing something had been creeping into my yard. Taking things. The sun dipped behind the trees, and as dusk smothered the neighborhood, an unnatural stillness settled over everything. No crickets, no wind, no hum of distant traffic. Just silence. The plants began to rustle. Not softly, not naturally. It was a deliberate, rhythmic shifting, like dozens of bodies moving in the dark. I pressed my ear against the window and felt my blood run cold. The breathing was back, louder this time. I finally grabbed a flashlight and went into the yard, the beam shaking in my hand. The air smelled thicker than before, syrupy and rotten. Even the grass felt wrong, too soft, like I was stepping on something pulsing beneath it. I pointed the light toward the fence. The garden had grown again, massively. Thick vines curled over the wooden planks, dripping with sap that looked disturbingly like blood. The flowers were fully open, wide, fleshy, and strange, like open mouths. Then I saw it. A shape rising from the crops. Twisted. Human, but stretched too far. The gardener. Its limbs were long and roped with plant fibers. Its skin looked like bark peeled from a tree, thin and cracking. Its face, if you could call it that, was nothing but a smooth mask of dark wood, except for 2 glowing orange points where its eyes should be. It stepped over the fence without a sound, straight into my yard. My legs turned to water. I tried to run, but the vines were faster. They burst from the soil and wrapped around my ankles, dragging me down to my knees. I screamed as they tightened, cold and wet. The gardener loomed over me, head tilting in unnatural jerks as if studying me. And then it spoke. Not with a voice, not with sound, but directly in my mind. "Growth requires sacrifice." My scream caught in my throat. The vines tightened. The soil beneath me shifted. Something was moving underground, something big. I clawed at the dirt, desperate, but the gardener reached down with one long branch-like hand. It touched the side of my face gently, like a parent comforting a child. "Others have fed the garden," the voice whispered inside my skull. "Now, it is your turn." Before I could react, the ground split open beneath me, and something below pulled hard, so hard I went under. I plunged into the earth like it was swallowing me whole. Cold mud filled my mouth. Roots scraped against my skin. I clawed upward, but every handful of soil collapsed back over me. My lungs screamed for air as the darkness folded in on itself. Like a faint, sickly green glow pulsed ahead of me. I tumbled into a cavern beneath the gardens, gasping, trembling as I dragged myself upright. What I saw nearly stopped my heart. Bodies, hundreds of them. Some were fresh, half buried in moss. Others were dried out like old husks, their faces twisted in silent horror. Vines threaded through their limbs, their chests, even their mouths, puppeteering them like grotesque marionettes. This was no garden. It was a feeding ground. At the center of the cavern grew a monstrous root network, a living heart of twisting wood, beating slowly like a drum. With every pulse, the entire underground chamber quivered. The gardener descended after me, its steps silent but its presence suffocating. The glowing eyes fixed on mine, and the voice seeped back into my head. Growth requires sacrifice. They gave themselves. You will too. I staggered backward, my foot catching on something. I looked down. Mrs. Delaney. My neighbor. Or what was left of her. Her eyes flickered open weakly, her lips trembling. She wasn't dead. Not yet. With shaking hands, she gripped my wrist. Burn the heart, she whispered. The vines yanked her back into the root mass before she could finish. I didn't have time to think, only act. There was only one thing in my pocket, my lighter. I flicked it on, the tiny flame trembling in the cavern's sick breath. The gardener lunged. I jammed the flame against the nearest root. The effect was instant. The cavern shrieked. Not with sound, but with every plant, every root, every corpse vibrating violently. Flames raced along the network like wildfire through dry leaves. The gardener staggered back, its wooden skin cracking and peeling as fire devoured it. I climbed, crawling through collapsing tunnels as the earth groaned above me. Bursting out into my yard, I watched as the entire garden ignited. Flowers shriveling, vines thrashing, the ground buckling as if the soil itself was screaming. And then, silence. Just before the last ember died, a whisper brushed my ear. Growth returns, in spring. I moved away the next day. But sometimes, late at night, I swear I hear rustling beneath the ground. Growing. Waiting.